Music elves that have the ability to summon demons. Join me as I tell you a strange story about Albert, who was possessed by a goblin. The dark days of Belgium, in a silent and soulless city, the life of a man named Albert was filled with the most terrible events and strange adventures, unfortunate and scary memories. Albert was a lonely and quiet person who, unlike everyone else, cherishes the desire of immortality in his heart. On a rainy night, Albert, driven and unaware of the dark future that awaits him, journeys into a deep mine and through hidden lands. There, in front of a lost chest, the albino eyes of a builder named William stared back at him. William was a shy and brilliant Frenchman who had new designs in his mind. Chest, but gave Albert a key. When Albert connected the key to the box, it opened a strange lock, and from inside, a strange noise entered his ears. Immediately, William disappeared, leaving only a saxophone of his memories. Albert bent the handmade saxophone and let out scary and mysterious sounds. But at that moment, a strange magic happened. Albert's saxophone was the cause of a body's dismissal. Elves, survivors of the Dark Lands, learned of the strange plans against Albert and began to attack. Albert fought, but failed. The extraordinary power of the jinns and the imperfect power of Albert came. With scary gray hands, the elves picked up Albert and carried him into their dark and infinite lands. In Albert's place, the only saxophone remained on the table, with an eerie sound that always made the ears of anyone who approached it tremble. Coming soon, True Fate and other stories of Albert and the saxophone. At night, in the dark and endless lands, the elves met Albert. Albert takes the unspoken and original saxophone songs with him to the Dark Lands. The listeners of Jin's eyes were captivated by his spiritual achievements and recognized the extent of his power. Between the terrible events and adventures of Albert, others were involved. The citizens of Goninum entered the Dark Lands and were in the grip of the Jinns. Panic and fear increased and dark shadows fell on the city. A sudden downpour of bloody rain turned the sky red and filled Albert with a sleepy breath. Elves were more strongly inspired by Albert's saxophone pieces and applied their own special skills. The dream of reality and the surface earthiness of Albert was like a problem. Albert's inner anxiety and desire for immortality led to mountains of inexhaustible fears. Time and dynamics of harmonizing dominated the instrument, and there was no way for Albert to escape from this endless nightmare. It is said that in the most intimate parts of the Dark Lands, salvation lies ahead. Will Albert be able to teleport and play the magic of the saxophone in battle with the genie? Or will the elves have a head start on their strength and survivability based on Albert? The context for many of the horrors of the story of Albert and the saxophone player is still being developed. All will be enlightened to our future adventures and dangerous holes. In the Dark Lands, Albert and his saxophone player face some terrible battles. The sounds of the beats of the bitter and dark songs frighten the fate of the souls. Albert is caught in a trap of fear and despair. But at that moment, a gift of charity comes to him. A dark and mysterious hand pulls him to the scales and an unknown force is transferred to him. Armed with new energy, Albert moves towards their dark and graceful creatures. From an unknown place, magical breathtaking power emerges and strange saxophone tunes come out of it. The elves are confused by the unknown force that rules them, caused by Albert's presence. They try to destroy Albert with their power, but fail. The saxophone player makes his presence known with every mysterious note he emits. Albert controls Mahabad and the saxophone player in such a way that even the elves tremble. His songs create darkness and horror, which causes unparalleled anxiety and fear among the jinns. A force full of hope and courage is delivered to Albert. The darkest thoughts disappear in the Dark Lands. Little by little, Albert confines the elves to a part of the dark lands and tries to get out of this dark realm. Why has Albert gained incredible power? Is the instrument of the saxophone a document for him, or has another transcendental force awakened inside him? Joining the darkness, will Albert be able to save John's Vector, or will trouble await him? Exciting adventures unfold, and the answers to these questions will be revealed in the near future. When the unconscious Albert becomes ashamed of his unknown powers and pays for his ways, the elves seize the opportunity to launch a violent attack. Their powerful bodies are embodied in dark shadows, and dark clouds cover the sky. One of the goblins quickly attacks Albert's hand and sends a very dark and destructive force towards him. Albert takes advantage of his inner strength and throws the monster back with a powerful blow. But this is only the beginning of a dark bar of terrible events. A group of elves form invisibly and trap Albert like black snakes alone in the middle of the night. Albert is surrounded by endless darkness, and his breathing comes to a standstill. With an ordinary breath and an unusual appearance, the elves surround Albert. They place their fingers on Albert's wounded heart as well. Suddenly, the ground shakes under Albert's feet and moves towards the basement like a giant tongue. In the dark shadows of the underground, the elves have prepared a chain of secrets and deadly traps. Albert, surrounded in a web of danger and terror, touches the saxophone, and songs from his diseased hand pour out into the light. But this fight is only a sign of the escape that is ahead. Will Albert be able to escape this powerful network, or will the endless terror of the demons come to a bitter end? Recently, amazing powers have been revealed in the leadership of the jinns. They turn on themselves, overturning the laws of nature and using Albert's power as their weapon. Can Albert get out of this situation alive, or will he experience a terrible defeat outside? On an even darker day, the challenge will be taken and the adventures will be waiting to be revealed. Albert, with trembling hands and a heart filled with terror, is caught in the middle of Durham's attack between the goblins and a network of various traps by Jingo, the leader of the goblins. With their supernatural forces, demons have surrounded Albert with cursed traps. Albert faces difficult challenges and dangers in these traps. In a trap, Albert is faced with unbreakable knots. The more he tries to get out, the more complicated and mysterious the knots become. Worry and despair appear in his heart, and he suddenly sends a request for help. But instead of helping, the wave of fear and longing deepens. With their evilness, the demons put burning hands on his shoulders and turn him into a strange and dark trap. Albert feels the narrow collar of terror in his companions and is afraid of the unprecedented anger of the demons. Apparently, the demons are surprised to encounter Albert's unknown power that they learned from him. But these incidents are only the beginning of a breathtaking deluge. Another trap embraces Albert and brings him to the heart of the power of the dark grenades. At the center of power, there is no absolute light, only an exponential darkness that grows louder and louder. Albert disappears in the middle of this all-encompassing darkness. When he is not noticed, suddenly something strange happens. Arrows of the truth become clear, a bitter and sinister fate that traps Albert in his thoughts. He has always been a part of the demons. A human who has simply faded away and had extraordinary powers that continue to suffocate deep within him. Was everything that Albert did to fight the demons the truth, or was he a vile victim in the hands of others? In the heart of this unapologetically terrifying darkness, Albert moves towards a bittersweet answer. The path in which good and evil will be destroyed forever and the final truth will be revealed. With trembling hands and eyes full of terror, Albert is caught in the heart of a trap, which penetrates into the dark and infinite depths. He is in the embrace of absolute light, which the more he advances, the more infinite darkness is found. The bitter truth and the completeness of his destiny are revealed to him suddenly and mysteriously. In the struggle for survival with the demons, Albert gradually descends into madness. Unconditionally, he releases his inner self to the dark nature that has been hidden until now. Demons drive him to madness with their devilish power. Fear and terror make him suffer from violence. Albert commits murder and vandalism, his emotions change and humanity disappears. The demons are overjoyed as they finally inject Albert's former villain into his heart. This dangerous combination of power and madness will change his ultimate destiny forever. They gain influence and control over his power, and Albert becomes a soulless intermediary between the worlds of demons and humans. He is no longer a human or a genie, but a proof of crime and evil. The demons, with their dark pride, have plunged Albert into a darkness shrouded in mystery and have always possessed themselves. When Albert's soul is immediately drawn to the full power of the dark grenades, he finds a deep penetration of evil within him. This evil spirit waits to be used suddenly and unintentionally, and Albert's destiny will reach its ultimate evolution. Albert's madness spreads. Eventually all humans and elves are afraid of his terrible power. In every moment of freedom, there is darkness around the hands and drags Albert to the final destruction. Finally, Albert is no longer a human or a genie, but an ideal of evil that exists in all worlds. The bare hands of the demons take him to the highest dark throne and show him that his whole existence belongs to the hands of the demons.